Today on the Playbook Podcast, it's election day, the moment we've all been waiting for. Dasha and I will run you through what you need to know.
I'm so excited.
It's also the day where we enter the longest government shutdown in history.
Less excited about that.
Less excited about that. And I know you're excited to tell us, Dasha, who has been serving raw milk at their wedding. We'll get into that at the end of the podcast. Hello, I'm Jack Blanchard.
And I'm Dasha Burns. It is Tuesday, November 4th, Election Day.
And this is the Playbook Podcast. You can hear the excitement in our voices. It's kind of lame, isn't it? But we really do get excited about these
I know.
things.
I want to pipe in election music right now.
I know. What does election music sound like? It's exciting.
Ba, ba, ba. Something to that effect.
Right across America, as you're listening to this, people are heading out to the polls for statewide, citywide, local elections. Yes, it's an off year. Yes, it's not the most important elections of the 4-year cycle, but it's still actual people wielding their democratic right. Power will change hands today, and it will tell us something really, really important about the mood of the nation, views of Donald Trump, views of the Democratic Party, and plenty more besides.
I have goosebumps. Do you all have goosebumps?
I really can't wait. I've been looking forward to November, and we are here. Dasha, there's a lot of different elections happening today. We've basically been focusing on 4 of them. And I think what we'll do this morning is walk our listeners through them one by one. The 4 are the New York City mayoral contest, the gubernatorial races in Virginia and New Jersey, and the redistricting ballot in California. Those are the 4 you need to be watching for tonight. Let's start with New York, Dasha. It's the thing everyone's been talking about. It's really captured the imagination, certainly from a political point of view, of the nation the last few months. And that wasn't necessarily always going to be the case, right? And New York mayorals are interesting always, but until Mamdani emerged in this wave of support, no one would have necessarily have known that New York was going to be the biggest thing this year.
I mean, the mayor's race is always fascinating. As someone who lived in New York for a decade, it's just an interesting city on so many different levels, and its politics are fascinating, but it's particularly fascinating right in this moment. I mean, you have this character in Zohran Mamdani that has captured the nation's attention. As you said, it also has captured the president's attention and captured the imagination of the Republican Party in terms of what they can do with this character to meet their own ends, and it has created a conundrum for Democrats of how are we going to deal with this guy? Are we going to embrace all of that energy that he has galvanized, or are we going to keep him at arm's length because of some of the positions he's taken and the voters that he turns off? And now you have President Trump chiming in and endorsing Cuomo, saying don't vote for the Republican in this race because that's just going to give this whole thing to Mamdani. Go out and vote for Democrat Andrew Cuomo. And there are a lot of other Republicans following his lead, which is something that was always a possibility, but it is striking to see that written straight out on Truth Social.
And who would have thought a few years ago when we were watching Cuomo and Trump go at it during COVID that you would see a President Trump in his second term endorsing Andrew Cuomo? I mean,
what a tale. What a yarn.
Politics. Mamdani has not won this thing yet, but every poll has Mamdani in front, and I have yet to meet anybody who doesn't think he's going to win tonight.
Yeah, the question is just how big of a blowout is it going to be, and will Curtis Sliwa take off his beret now that President Trump said he looks better without it?
And when Trump speaks, Republicans tend to listen, although Curtis Sliwa seems like a pretty independently minded Republican candidate to me. We've talked a lot about what might happen if and when Mamdani wins, and how President Trump and the Republicans are going to try and weaponize his victory. I think that the other thing that's interesting about this race, Dasha, is how much it sort of captured the imagination of what I'll vaguely call the left, not just here in America, but honestly around the world. I mean, this election is going to make Mamdani probably the world's most prominent senior left-wing politician. Candidates with this kind of socialist policy platform obviously don't normally win big elections in America. And so it feels like a bit of a moment for the left. And of course, the Democratic Party will what lessons it takes from this victory remain to be seen. But it's certainly going to be, it's going to put the cat amongst the pigeons, to use an English phrase, within the party, a party that's still trying to find its way after the crushing defeat last
Cat
year.
amongst the pigeons. I'm going to
Let's talk about Virginia. That's obviously the closest to home election for us here in DC, and feels like the one that Democrats will be most comfortable about this morning in winning back the governor's seat there.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. Abigail Spanberger has had a comfortable lead from the very beginning. The dynamic did change a little bit with the Jay Jones controversy. It's something that Republicans across the country have latched onto, and certainly Spanberger's opponent, Winsome Earl Sears, has jumped on to as well. But she has maintained a lead, and the other big factor in this race, President Trump did not endorse Winsome Earl Sears. He's endorsed in New Jersey. He's obviously made his thoughts clear about New York as well, like we talked about. He hasn't done that. He held a tele-rally there in Virginia yesterday, but no endorsement for Winsome Earl Sears.
Well, that's a pretty damning indictment of her chances. Abigail Spanberger, obviously a well-known member of Congress until the start of this year, and someone very much on the moderate wing of the Democratic Party. And I famously remember her saying a few years ago how about Democrats must never use the word socialist again in any election. Ironic that she looks like she's going to win this big governor's race on the same night that the most famous Democratic socialist in news is going to win.
There are just so many narratives at play here. And I do think this is another one, like in all these races, where the margins really are going to matter. She's had a comfortable lead. I do wonder if her response to the Jay Jones leaked text messages are potentially going to put a dent in her lead. Her opponent made a pretty powerful ad out of her response at the debate, and that's been playing. I mean, if you've turned a TV on anywhere in the area over the last couple of weeks, it's been all over the place.
Right. And I think for people trying to read the sort of national runes by looking at these state elections and this one and the New Jersey race, which we'll come on to in a second in particular, it's the margins we'll be looking at, right? Spanberger very, very likely to win the governor's seat back for Democrat, but by how big? And does it feel like a ringing endorsement of the Democrats, of a sort of crushing condemnation, if you like, of Republicans, and will therefore be seen as a condemnation of Donald Trump? Or is it much more, is it closer than that, and therefore sort of feels like she's won because essentially it's the Democrats' turn to win this governor's seat? No Republicans won this seat when there's been a Republican in the White House since 1970. So history suggests the Democrats ought to win. And I guess the other factor in Virginia, of course, is the number of federal workers based in the state. How angry are they feeling about A, the way that Donald Trump has treated the federal workforce since the start of the year, and then B, the government shutdown, which of course is still ongoing as we go to the polls today. Let's talk about New Jersey. In some ways, this is the most interesting race tonight, Dasha, because it's so close. I mean, this is the one where I don't feel super confident saying who's going to win the governor's race.
You sure you don't want to make a bet, Jack?
Well, look. The odds would tell you, and the polls will tell you that Democrat candidate Mikey Sherrill is likely to win, but it's very close, and polls have not been accurate enough over recent years for me to feel comfortable in saying that she is going to win. Her Republican opponent Jack Ciattarelli came really close to winning the governorship last time round.
And New Jersey surprised a lot of people in 2024 for how well Trump did in that state. Right. And so, I mean, I was there at a rally. I remember it was a really weirdly freezing day on the Jersey Shore, where Trump drew a massive crowd. Of course, as usual, not quite as big as he claimed it was, but drew just an enormous crowd, and in a state and around cities where you just wouldn't expect it. So things have shifted in New Jersey over the last couple of elections, and this could be a squeaker. Either way, it's gonna be, this one in particular, a really important narrative setter of a race.
I think you're totally right there. And if the Democrats do win it and win it comfortably, then people will start to say that shift that you talked about that happened in 2024 was a temporary thing, and all those new voters that Donald Trump pulled in are returning to their previous home of the Democratic Party, and the
Yeah, and
Dems will feel
they can
really
say
strong about that.
If Trump is not at the top of the ticket, then Republicans are not going to do as well. But if the tables turn and Schiaparelli either wins or does come like within striking distance, Republicans are going to say, Dems should be worried here.
Exactly. Even with Donald Trump's historically bad personal poll ratings right now, the Dems still can't win in a state like this, which hasn't voted for a Republican president for decades, hasn't voted in a Republican senator for decades. Like, the Democrats would feel they ought to be winning a seat like this with a Republican in the White House.
That's right.
Let's zoom across the country to a place close to your heart, Dasha, in California.
West Coast, best coast.
If you say so. Gavin Newsom, the governor, pulled this gambit a few months ago where he suddenly announced he was going to have a vote on whether redistricting should go ahead in California on the back of what Republicans did in Texas. It seemed like the most audacious move at the time. Lots of questions about whether he could pull it off, whether he could convince California voters that redistricting was a good idea. We stand on the cusp of it today, with every poll suggesting he's going to win, if not a landslide, pretty big today, and that's quite an endorsement for him.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation on this show some weeks or months ago about, whether Democrats are going to have the stomach to do this thing, if they're willing to play dirty. Like, is this another way for them to show voters that they have some fight? Is it the right way to do it, or are they going to piss people off? Is this going to feel like it's going against the grain of what Democrats typically do in a bad sort of way? I mean, we had this debate, but it does look like he has been able to rally a whole lot of people in favor of this. And I think when I talk to Democrats, they say the fact that Republicans are making headlines constantly trying to make this happen in more and more other states is certainly playing a role here. I mean, Texas being the big one, but we've got plenty of other examples to talk about right now where redistricting could be coming soon in
You
the favor
bet.
of Republicans.
Yeah, and I feel like Newsom's kind of shifted the whole dial for Democrats here. When he first suggested it, was sort of this slight sense of outrage the Dems would do this. Now, they're talking about what other states can they do it. The party's sort of mindset has shifted on the back of his push in California, as someone
Yeah.
who wants to be seen as a leader of the Democratic Party, maybe in 2028, he'll be pretty happy about that.
I will say that tactically, in terms of like the real practical examples of how to try to take on this administration as a Democrat, Gavin Newsom has absolutely been leading from his online approach to his policy approach and galvanizing voters to his cause.
For those of you watching on TV tonight, as I'm sure loads of people listening to this podcast will be sitting down to watch the election coverage, let me give you some timings. We're expecting the first results from Virginia about 7:10 tonight. These are Eastern time. The first results from New Jersey about 8 o'clock tonight. The first results from New York City about 9 o'clock tonight. And the first results from California just after 11 p.m. tonight. And it's going to be a very late night for you and me, Dasha, and lots of our journalistic
Indeed,
colleagues.
running on adrenaline.
Before we talk about the shutdown, just let me quickly flag a couple of other races that worth keeping an eye on if you are watching this play out tonight. Smaller, but definitely interesting things are happening in Maine. There is a ballot happening there on tightening voting rules, photo ID for voters, reducing absentee ballot times. That's a very contentious issue in a state that is a very hotly contested state, of course, in political terms, and well worth watching what happens there, I would say. The other one that people are very interested in is in Pennsylvania, where there's an unusually contentious election, where there's the Democratic justices who are currently on the state Supreme Court should stay there. And a lot of money has been flowing into that. We saw Barack Obama campaigning on this issue, and that's turned into quite a big thing in the sort of battle for control of the Supreme Court there for the next few years. So, keep your eye on that one as well. Should we talk about the shutdown? It's a record-breaking day,
Let's
Dasha.
do it.
It's
Yeah,
a record-breaking day. As if an
It
election
is.
wasn't enough this evening, this will become the longest federal government shutdown in American
Wow.
history.
We're living history.
We've talked about last week whether this could be the week things are shifting. It does feel a little bit like we're getting some movement. I do think getting past this record point is one further factor, and also getting past the elections today is another factor where parties might feel it's time for an off-ramp after today.
Yeah, those are both the off-ramp starters that everyone's been talking about, the thing that could kick off a real way to end this thing. I interviewed the head of the largest federal worker union yesterday. This is, of course, the union that put out a statement recently calling on Democrats to stand down and to vote to reopen the government. And he told me that he has had conversations with Schumer and Jeffries since he put out that statement. He made clear how he feels. Not clear if they are on the same page just yet. He said they disagree, but they're still friends. He did say to me though that he says they've made their point. They have made their point, and now it's time to finish this thing off. And I think that that is a big sentiment out there. What's not clear is, does that outweigh, the fight that voters have been wanting to see from Democrats? Is this the right fight for Democrats to pick? It's hard to know. I think there are a lot of operatives, aides looking at every poll out there to try to suss out who's winning. No one can really answer that right now.
All right, maybe we'll see that one progress this week. Before we go, Dasha, we need to talk about something jollier than a government shutdown, a wedding, a political wedding, in fact. Tell us something funny about the political wedding of the fall that we learned about.
The premier fall event. Thomas Massey got married to his girlfriend Carolyn in Kentucky, and I saw this post and cute wedding picture, but I kind of scrolled through. But then the words "raw milk" stood out to me.
As they should.
And of course, his girlfriend Carolyn is a Maha practitioner and proponent, in his words. And they served raw milk with the wedding cake and margaritas made with frozen peaches from the farm.
Love it.
I just have never heard the phrase raw milk and wedding kind of go together. Although I will say, I grew up in Ukraine, and as a kid, I actually hated milk for a really long time, even when I moved to the U.S., because in Ukraine we didn't have pasteurized milk, and my family had cows, and we drank the milk, and it gets this film on top of it when it's unpasteurized and really fresh. And I really hated that film. I think it's maybe supposed to be good for you. I don't know. I actually am not a raw milk expert.
You needed some good old-fashioned processed American milk to get
Listen,
you going.
I am not knocking raw milk, or please do not come after me, milk aficionados.
Oh man,
I do not claim any
Dasha's
expertise
really
in this
put
area.
a foot in it with the Maha.
Oh boy,
now.
don't
Okay.
drag me. Don't drag.
I think we better stop there, Dasha. Thank you very much for that. Thanks all for listening. That's all we got time for today's show. Do go out and vote. If you're in a position to do so. And do read today's Playbook newsletter, which has got loads more news and analysis, as it always does. You can find that at politico.com/playbook. And we will be back tomorrow to talk through the election results. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening. Happy Election Day.